So let's start. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you all here. So I'm Samir from Juristax MENA, Business Development Manager based in the Dubai office, and I'll be moderating today's session. We have got a really solid lineup and a full house, so let's jump straight in. Before anything, let me introduce the two speakers you will be hearing from. On my right side is Mr. Runa. So first, Mr. Runa, director at Juristax MENA. She's a corporate lawyer and a compliance specialist with deep experience across multiple jurisdictions, Mauritius, Dubai, Singapore. And she's the one behind a lot of our global structuring and governance work. Second, on my left is Mr. Donald Fernandez from RAK ICC. Donald leads business development there, works directly with international investors, partners, and advisors. He's been in this field for over 14 years across banking, finance, and corporate structuring. Let's move to the next slide. So there will be 4 parts which we'll be covering. Part 1 will be from Juristax, then RAK ICC, then again Juristax, and then there will be a short Q&A at the end. So now just to give a bit of context before we start. At Juristax, we are focused on helping clients, structures, and protect their wealth across borders, and the UAE is a big part of that strategy. RAK ICC, as you all know, has become one of the most credible corporate registries in the UAE, especially with the new developments around property ownership and digitalization. So today is really about giving you a full practical picture of how these pieces come together, what's happening in the UAE, what's new at RAK ICC, and how these structures work in real client scenarios. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and I will take a few towards the end. So let's get started. To start off, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Runa. She will walk you through what's happening in the UAE right now, the regulatory updates, the impact of corporate tax, the banking landscape, and how investors are planning their structures going forward. So Taruna, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So apologies for this little technical issue. It always happens when you start the webinar. So I'm very happy to be part of this panel today to discuss about why United Arab Emirates and Ras Al Khaimah should become one of the financial center to consider if you are considering to set up an offshore structure. So we are going to start with why United Arab Emirates. If you look at the global financial center index of the world around the different financial centers, you will see that UAE today ranks among the highest. It's 11th on the latest report. In terms of ease of doing business, UAE is considered as among the best one in the world. In terms of corruption, it's very well rated. It's considered to be those where you have least corruption. In terms of its international transparency and compliance with international standards such as OECD, it's one which is considered as fully compliant with all the international standards. And who have not heard about the UAE airports, who have not been there? In terms of its connectivity, it serves more than 140 global destinations, so it's a really hub for connections. And standard of living. This is one of the strongest reasons why people consider UAE either as a second home or a place to set up a business or expand their business. It is considered as one of the safest countries in the world and the highest level of infrastructure and quality of life. Coming to its tax environment, where I'll be discussing in more details in the next few slides, it's good to know that United Arab Emirates has a very strong network of non-double taxation agreements signed with different countries, which means that you have a privileged way of doing business with more than 140 countries. In terms of corporate tax, which did not exist a few years ago, UAE is still a very low one-digit tax rate country as opposed to other countries. You don't have any capital gains tax, you don't have wealth taxes, and you do have a small VAT, which does apply for certain cases, which I'm going to go into more details in a few next slides. But it's one of those jurisdictions which offers the flexibility of being a very low tax jurisdiction, but at the same time being very compliant with the international standards. There have been more than 1 million companies registered in the United Arab Emirates. This is just to show you the level of confidence that investors do make to this financial center. So moving on, you will see that, so sorry, just 1 minute. If we need to talk about the different types of structures, of corporate structures that the United Arab Emirates offer, we are going to separate it into three main categories. The first main category is the mainland entities. The second one, which is very popular, is the free zone. Free zone entities, it's good to know that United Arab Emirates, you have more than 50 different types of free zones. Each free zone has got its own specificity, but most importantly, when you are thinking of expanding your business or doing business in United Arab Emirates, you need to know which free zone is the best for you. Then obviously you have a third category, which is offshore type of businesses, which mean that you are not going to deal with UAE. Here, the main difference whenever someone is thinking of setting up in UAE, he needs to tick one of the boxes, whether he wants to be on the mainland, which means that you can do business within United Arab Emirates. It does allow you to be 100% a shareholder, even if you're a foreigner, which was not the case previously. This has been recently amended, though in certain cases, you will still need a local sponsor. So this is for mainland. For free zone, you can see the different names. There is Ras Al Khaimah, DIFC, Meydan, ADGM. All these are considered as free zones. And those free zones allow for 100% foreign ownership. There are certain free zones which also allow for 0% corporate tax. And then lastly, you've got the offshore companies, which you can set up, including such as entities in RAK ICC. And these are normally entities where you will not be allowed to do business within the United Arab Emirates. So the first box to be ticked is in which category you fall. And then we are here eventually where we will be able to explain to you what are the different features of each category. As you can see on the table, you will see that here there are the common features of what we call offshore, what we call free zone, and mainland. As I've mentioned, the 100% foreign ownership, it's possible. Sometimes clients come to us and tell us that they have got requests where you need to share the shareholding with someone local. Like I say, it's only for mainland companies that there are certain business activities that require local partner, but in most cases, you don't need that. In terms of local resident directors, this as well, you will see that offshore zones or offshore companies, you don't need to have local resident directors. Even for free zones, it's not mandatory. Though sometimes for free zone, it is required if you want to have a bank account in the UAE or to show more substance, then obviously it's something which is advisable, but it's not mandatory. For mainland, you need to have one UAE resident manager in the UAE to act as such. In terms of setup, creation of companies, it's like I've mentioned before, UAE is one of the most easiest financial center to set up. And you can see it in the time frame where you can eventually get the certificate of incorporation of your company. This can range from 3 to 5 for offshore, 5 to 10 for a free zone, and 2 to 3 weeks for a mainland entity. It's a very competitive time frame when you compare it with other developed financial centers. You can also see that in terms of certification, in terms of compliance, different zones offer different possibilities. For certain offshore entities, you can just submit certified copies. You don't need to go through attestation or alongside with MOFA. But in certain cases, such as for mainland, you will need to complete the process for attestation and and MOFA attestation, which can take longer. In terms of redomiciliation, what it is all about, sometimes you have got clients who have set up already the entities in another financial center, Seychelles, or you can have Jersey, but then they want to continue the company set up in another country. They want to continue working, but in Dubai. So you have specific zones in UAE which allows for redomiciliation, as you can see on the screen. So this is a brief comparison of the different types of features for the three main categories of entities in the UAE. Now coming to the tax environment of UAE, which has been much in the I would say in the limelight, is in terms of corporate tax. As you can see, this is relatively new. It did not exist before. It has come into existence in 2023. If we need to talk about the rule, what is the rule today in terms of corporate tax in the UAE? So this is what you see on the screen. For any profits that you make, which is below the AED 375,000, which is normally $100,000, you can still benefit from 0% corporate tax. But for anything above, you will be subject to 9% corporate tax. So if you exceed the $100,000, you are subject to 9% on the profits of your company. This is the rule. This is something which is novel for many clients, even of ours, who were not used to it. This is the rule. However, the UAE tax framework also allows for certain type of entities set up in specific free zones to benefit and to continue to benefit from the 0% corporate tax rate. And for this to happen, you need to ensure that you are set up in the right free zone. You maintain the adequate substance requirements in the UAE, and eventually it's on certain type of income where you can continue benefiting from the 0% on your profits. And here on the screen, you will see what type of income are we talking about where you can continue benefiting from the 0%. One of the most popular one is the investment holding, where you can see you have a chance to continue benefiting the 0%. If you are investment holding, you are set up in the right free zone, you are satisfying the substance requirements, which also include having audited financial statements. You can be in the manufacturing industry or be in the trading industry. You can still benefit from the 0%, but by making sure you respect the substance requirements. And as you can also see on the screen, there are other taxes in the UAE, which is a VAT, and this normally is applicable when it exceeds $375,000 revenue. You need to register for it, and then you need to file the returns. But as any other financial center, UAE is very competitive in terms of taxes. Even with 9%, today at least UAE has got the clean reputation of being a country where you are not setting up to evade taxes. You are paying taxes, but it's a low share one. And with possibilities not to pay, but being fully compliant with every international standards. You don't have withholding taxes on dividends, royalties, or payments. You don't have taxes on capital gains. Tomorrow you want to set up a company and then you sell the shares of your company. You have nothing to pay on the excess of value. One more important thing for many clients who want to have a second home or a second tax residency, there is no personal taxation in the UAE. So this is something which is important for people considering to relocate their family or themselves to have a residency visa. So in a nutshell, the UAE tax system is one of the most competitive and compliant fully with OECD and the BEPS principle. So after talking about the taxation system in the UAE, one of the most commonly questions that we get asked by clients is about the banking. How easy it is to open a bank account in the UAE. First of all, we need to know that the UAE has a very mature banking system with a very efficient way for effecting banking transactions. As you can see on the screen, there are all types of banks in the UAE, be it local banks, international banks, or private banks. Clients are being offered, whether they are retail clients or corporate clients, they have a suite of possibilities to decide from which bank they can go for to cater for their business needs. We work with many of them that you can see on the screen. And as any bank in any part of the world, obviously you need to make sure you pass the right compliance level. And the compliance level would be the same documentation that is requested, as you can see, is the license, the KYC, and the business plan. So the process and timeline, this is which can differ depending on your business activity, depending on in which zone you have set up as well, because certain zones are considered to be higher risk or certain zones are considered to be lower risk. So this will also determine the time frame in which you can get the bank account open. Whether you have substance in the UAE, when I say substance, whether your shareholders or directors have residency visas in the UAE, whether you have an office in the UAE, all this will determine to what extent the bank account opening process in the UAE can be successful. Obviously, there are other methods today. It's not only about the traditional banking that we all know. Today, there is a possibility to do, you have digital banks which are opening for clients who have set up in the UAE and which is working perfectly. So this is other option which is very, I would say, frequently used by people who have set up in the UAE. Moving on to another part of this first part of the presentation is about residency. As many of you may be aware, the UAE is a country full of expats. And one of the reasons that this is the case, first of all, it's because of its standard of living, of its safety, of its infrastructure, and also of the opportunities that it offers, be it for entrepreneurs, be it for people who are looking for a job, being for families who want to make sure that they have a place to be, and while ensuring also that the personal taxation of each remains relatively nil. So how to become a resident in the UAE? You will see that we have decided to put forward three main categories, which is mostly, I would say, popular. The first one, if you're setting up an entity in the UAE, you have the chance to take the residency permit. The residency permit, obviously, for an investor, it can be valid depending on which zone you are from 2 to 3 years, renewable, and obviously everything you will need to be present in the UAE for certain part of the process, for the medical test and for the biometrics to make sure you can get the permit. If you are an employee of an entity structured in the UAE, you have a chance to apply for an employment permit, also renewable. And in both cases, your family as well can get dependence visas. The last one, which is also very popular and in demand, is a golden visa. The golden visa, it's something which has been put in practice for the last 2 to 3 years. And it's a long-term residency visa from 5 or 10 years, and it applies in specific cases. If you are investing around minimum 2 million AED in property, you have a chance to apply for a golden visa. If you're earning more than 30,000 dirhams on a monthly basis, you have a chance to apply for a golden visa. And the main difference is the time frame. It's a long-term visa, which is eventually very interesting for certain categories of people. So today, after talking about the banking, the features of each type of company, the residency opportunities that UAE offers, it's good to conclude on the note saying that UAE has positioned itself as having a very mature tax and legal environment. You have access to a financial system which is working perfectly, and eventually to ensure that clients can optimize on the opportunities that is being offered, while ensuring that the tax liability remains minimal. So this is where I think I'll finish on my first part of the presentation, where it was really, I would say, introducing you to the global framework on the United Arab Emirates. And I'll be more than happy to take your questions at the end of this session.
Thank you, Taruna. That sets the stage really well, actually. So now let's move to RAK ICC. Donald will take us through what makes RAK ICC stand out, the structures they offer, the compliance framework, and the latest developments, including the DLD collaborations, which is the Dubai Land Department, which a lot of people are curious about, and the move towards fully digital formation. Donald, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Samir. I hope I'm audible to everyone. It was a pleasure, for the invite guys have given for this webinar. So I can reach out to a lot more people to understand what RAK ICC is, what our offerings are, and how are we different than any other jurisdiction when people come across. So let me start with introducing what RAK ICC is. Let me give you guys a little bit of brief in terms of what RAK ICC is. To make it more simple, we are the world-class and one of the fastest growing international corporate registry based in Ras Al Khaimah. We offer a comprehensive framework for global structuring, private wealth management. And the other best part is we are government-owned registry, which is under Ras Al Khaimah government. And our framework is a combination of common law as well as UAE law. So that becomes more easier for people to adapt in terms of the jurisdiction. Our core focus is on corporate structuring, wealth preservation, succession planning, asset protection when it comes to a long-term planning, which individually a client will look for, or a family is looking for, main of the family offices, or in terms of securing the private wealth. In terms of compliance, we are fully compliant with AML, CFT, and CRS standards, ensuring globally credibility and the trust, which is we use for our compliance as well. And the best part, which most people want to see, is the transparency and privacy. So we maintain the confidentiality of the ownership data, which is securely with us, balancing the investor privacy as well as managing the international regulatory compliance. And you guys must be seeing one more recent highlight, which is the signing of MOU with DLD, that's Dubai Land Department, which I will be explaining a bit later when we come on the further in the presentation when I talk about foundations. So let me give the how exactly RAK ICC can help people to protect their asset, ring fence it, you can say for longevity of their wealth, to put it in the secure hands. So our structuring ensures, as you guys can see on the slide itself, it's asset protection and ring fencing, continuity and succession planning, tax efficiency and cross-border recognition, compliance with evolving international norms. In terms of tax efficiency, everyone knows already that UAE is currently has incorporated corporate tax, but still we are very competitive in terms of when it comes to corporate tax, being a very choosable jurisdiction for people across the globe. Considering RAK ICC giving you the infrastructure where we operate under the common law framework, which helps the client to ease their business rather worrying about the Sharia law or a civil law within the UAE as jurisdiction. Next is advantages of using RAK ICC. Now, as I just spoke about the common law, so our common law choices are through DIFC ADGM courts. We have an MOU with DIFC and ADGM courts where the arbitration can take place in DIFC ADGM courts through the common law process. In terms of global compliance alignment, we have international compliance standards, follows through EU, UK, as well as OFAC. Competitive setup and renewal cost. The cost, definitely, I'm not going to deep dive into it, but we have our amazing agents and companies we work with. One of them is Juristax. So they are the one who will deep dive into the cost and the setup entire packages for the clients. In terms of access to expertise, now access to professional service providers That is more to do with our agents. When we work with accountants, legal advisor, service providers. So you get a variety, or you can say you get a complete solution in terms of legal and accounting in the same place, rather than moving towards different companies or different people to help you with all these services. In terms of a product, now, when we say RAK ICC, we are more often known for our international business companies, which is more like holding companies, foundation, and RPCs. RPCs are basically restricted company. So that is restricted purpose company, which is more likely as an SPV, special purpose vehicle, for the clients who would like to set up, but with more enhanced security, which RAK ICC gives you by restricting the activities. So let's move forward to talk first with a very core important topic, which is private wealth and legacy planning solutions. So when we think about a private wealth and legacy planning solution, the only thing comes in our mind is foundation. The reason behind it is because the foundation gives you a complete secured access, because the foundation, I can definitely vouch, that is stronger than a will, because a will can be anytime challenged in the court of the law. But for the foundation to be challenged, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of effort to go through the process because of the arbitration. So with RAK ICC Foundation, what exactly we do and how are we different than any other in the jurisdiction in the market is because, firstly, you get access to all three. You can select the law in terms of ADGM, DIFC, or civil law, which is RAK courts. You have an access. Plus, the other thing is the privacy, the confidentiality which we have in terms of the foundations and the founders, making it more secure for people. We are transparent completely with the regulatory, which makes us more confident in the market. The other way, or the privilege, is when it's a foundation, as our foundation, as per FTA, can also be deemed as unincorporated entity, which can be helping for tax exemption. That doesn't mean you do not need to register for corporate tax. You do need to register for corporate tax. In the same way, you need to again focus on providing the documents and information to make it as a family foundation, unincorporated entity, so the exemption can be granted by the corporate, by FTA. So in terms of the key purpose for our foundations, it's more into legacy planning, asset consolidation, business continuity. So with this slide, you will see the framework, how the foundation looks like. On the right-hand side, you will see there's a founder who creates the foundation. Then there's a guardian who can oversee the foundation process. The guardian can be founder himself. Then the bare minimum, we need 2 council members to operate the foundation. These council members will be abided by the bylaws, because the foundation is consisted of a charter and a bylaws. So their individual positions or the frame of work will be given in the bylaws, because bylaws is something which is internal document for the foundations, wherein a charter is for the authorities to take care of. Okay. When it comes to the qualified recipient, again, the qualified recipient can be the founder themselves, or they can keep their children or their successors as a qualified recipient. So ultimately, the foundation can hold investment bond, real estate, personal chalet, RAK ICC company, banks, assets, even cash. And when we say personal chalet, it can be jewelry, it can be the luxury watches. So all these things, IP rights, can be put under the foundation to make it more secure. So as per our research, we can see that there are over 2,000 foundations registered across UAE jurisdiction within RAK ICC, ADGM, DIFC. And these are adopted by almost 52 nationalities, led by UAE and GCC families. The assets, typical assets which we see across the foundations, are the companies, real estate portfolios, or alternative holding like arts, yacht, vessels, aircraft. So it depends on what exactly the client wants to secure for their long-term planning. Now, in terms of the key features of a foundation, now foundation is definitely an independent legal entity. It is unlike trust. So, as I said, it has to be registered for corporate tax. That doesn't mean you are going to pay the corporate tax, because for that, in case if there is no business activity, you can file for an exemption through FTA. And if FTA approves the exemption, the foundation is then non-taxable. You just need to file it, but you don't need to pay any taxes. The foundation can own and manage assets separately from the founder, ensuring clear legal and operational separation. So once the assets are moved under foundation, the founder becomes discrete because the owner of the assets becomes the foundation, which helps a lot of people to manage their asset very securely. Strong governance oversight, managed by council and operational guardian for oversighting it. So council members, we need bare minimum 2 council members. It can be the founder himself, it can be a corporate entity, it doesn't matter. It has to be the rules or the structure, the way the council members are going to be following the things will be oversighted by the guardian, which needs to be dictated in the bylaws, because bylaws is a very important document. Even it is considered for bank account opening, the bylaws has been considered as a very important document for the clients to have bank account for the foundation separately. In terms of legal integrity, beneficiaries hold no legal title. The foundation will retain the full control under the robust regulatory framework. Enhanced confidentiality, as I mentioned earlier, the founder and the beneficiary information is protected under data privacy and the RAK ICC regulations. Our regulations are something which is very transparent. You will find it on our website, which can be downloaded, and you can go through it. It's a good detailed regulation with some recent amendments which we have done recently, which I will go through in further slides. Long-term continuity, that provides a perpetual existence with the flexible powers for sustained wealth and business management. So there's no an expiry date, I can say, for a foundation. Yes, foundation has to be renewed every year, but there's no certain expiry date, by this date the foundation will be expired, or it will be cancelled or dissolved. So it can be continued by the qualified recipient as well, by creating a new foundation if the same asset has to be maintained. Global credibility and compliance, supported by RAK ICC, internationally recognized tax efficient legal framework. This is in terms, because as we abide with the global compliance in terms of the EU, UK, as well as OFAC sanction, as I said earlier. So we take care of this, and the credibility is because it is very important for us to manage compliance, because we need to be there in the market, up to the mark, competing with other jurisdictions, not only within UAE, but even outside UAE. So that helps in terms of that's a brief about the foundation, which I can tell you. So there's a very important point here, which I said we will be discussing later. First, let me talk about the amendments which we have recently done, the 2025 amendments on the foundation. So the first amendment is the firewall protection. What does this mean? It means the foundation is better protected from outside countries trying to use their own court decision against it. So let me put it in the simple words. Foreign courts cannot easily touch the foundation or its assets. Like, they can't tell us to RAK ICC to freeze the asset and we are going to freeze it immediately. No, it doesn't work like that. So that's the first protection we have put as per the RAK ICC regulation. That's a firewall protection. Second is a 3-year statutory limitation. Now, that means if someone wants to challenge the foundation or complain about the foundation, how the assets were moved into it, or they must do that within the period of 3 years. So someone or a disputer gets 3 years to dispute anything on the foundation, to raise any claims which can be disputed, and there is a limitation of 3 years. So after 3 years, if nobody complains, the matter is closed forever. They cannot dispute how the assets were moved under the foundation. So that again secures the foundation for the client, and it gives a kind of an, as I said, more appropriate ring fencing to their assets. Third amendments which we have done is protection in case of credit or fraud. Now that means if someone moves asset into the foundation to cheat the creditors, only the amount needed to pay to the creditor can be taken out. So initially, if there was a dispute which was from a creditor and the creditor basically wins the dispute, earlier days, the foundation has to be dissolved and the amount has to be paid to the creditor. Then the founder has to make a new foundation again and move again the assets back to the foundation, which was a huge task plus a lot of money involved. But with this protection, what happens is the creditor will get the amount disputed, which has to be paid by the creditor as per the authorities. That amount will be given to the creditor without showing up what the asset the foundation holds. And the foundation will still continue. So for example, in simple words, if someone tries to cheat a creditor, only the money needed to repay that creditor can be removed from the foundation, nothing more. And the founder can still continue to use it for their legacy planning. Fourth amendment which we have done, that is duress protection. Now duress protection is basically a protection from pressure or forced actions. So what does that mean? The foundation is protected from people or authorities trying to forcefully take its assets or interfere with it. So in terms like no one can pressure or force the foundation in giving up its assets unfairly. So if there is any dispute, it has to be streamlined by a proper arbitration through a DIFC ADGM, whichever the common law, the court is being selected by the client. If it's a DIFC ADGM, so based on that, whatever the dispute outcomes will be adhered, and the assets will be given according to the clear terms which is mentioned by the DIFC court, because that's what the client has chosen. In terms of the fifth amendment, that is a stronger arbitration system. So if there is a disagreement, it can be solved privately through arbitration, which now has similar power to the court. So a private arbitration can be done, which is similarly considered like a power of a court. And it is more faster, safer, and more private to the client if it doesn't want to be highlighted in the outer world. So disputes can be solved quietly, safely, without getting into the public court, or without getting into a public notice as well. And it can be helping the client in terms of securing the foundation and the name of the foundation and become more discreet. Then the last amendment which we did is private trustee foundation rules. So this explains a foundation can be, again, a trustee of a trust. The foundation can go ahead and become a trustee of a trust. With this, what happens is the foundation asset will remain separate and the assets of the trust will remain separate. It will not be interfered in between. So the foundation will always remain separately, but they can be a trustee of a trust, and the trust assets will remain separate. Okay, it controls, both has individual control. So this is the amendments which we have done recently with our foundation, which makes our foundation more stronger in terms of protection for the client, which will help the client to be more discreet, confident, as well as have the complete trust with RAK ICC Foundation for their legacy planning. Now, moving back to one of the major news which we have secured, that is the DLD signing of MOU with DLD memorandum. So basically, this has given us a huge opportunity to move the real estate from Dubai under the foundation as well as our holding companies. So this is where even the real estate can be moved to the foundation directly, or it can be moved through a holding company as well. It's the choice of the client, because if he wants to get the exemption from the tax on the holding company also, it can be a flow through. But do not mistaken here, there shouldn't be any business activity, just the holding of real estate, where you can go ahead and do this in terms of managing the property and still keeping yourself discreet. Okay, now moving on to the international business company, that is the IBCs. So IBCs, it's more of a 100% foreign owned companies, which can be completely controlled by foreign entities or foreign nationals, with no minimum capital requirement and a flexibility for all investor type. So it can be flexibly, plus our IBCs are globally recognized for trading, investment, asset management, offering again strong governance and cross-border structuring. So the key features will be for 100% foreign ownership. Second is broad business scope that permits a wide range of activities like holding, trading, consulting, and more, with flexible structuring option. Seamless redomiciliation enables effortless transfer of entities into our jurisdiction without liquidation. So any company which is formed in any other jurisdiction, that may be a Cayman, BVI, Belize, and maybe Panama, and the client wishes to move the same company to UAE to have a better credibility for the company, they can move it very swiftly without any problem, hesitations, and minimal documentation. Definitely, Juristax will be the point of contact to help you with the redomiciliation in terms of your company. Then we have flexible capital and asset holding, which allows multiple share classes, ownership into real estate shares or IP within or outside UAE. So again, when it comes to IP rights, you can also hold IP rights with RAK ICC IBC, which is in the trend at the moment, because IP rights again gives people need to secure IP rights, which they don't really understand when it comes to getting it secured more with using a holding company and a foundation. It will be more beneficial for outer people or outer, you can say, the disputers, to take the IP within their control. Then we talk about confidential and compliant. This enables the confidentiality while adhering to FATF, CRS, and AML standards through licensed registered agent. So we do, when we work with agents as well, we do definitely do due diligence on the agents. We do check if they are registered with the Go AML, and the adherence in terms of the compliance. They do have a compliance officer. So we take care of all these things before we even work with any agents. So that's how, whenever you're working with our agents, you can be rest assured, because they are also compliant with all these regulations in terms of the compliance with AML and FATF. Governance and global credibility, preferred by investors and family offices for governance, efficiency, and common law access. As I said, this is a very big key point, common law access. Since the time UAE started with common law access, it is something which gives more confidence to the foreign investors to invest more in UAE and secure their legacy within the UAE. And let me also clear a myth. A lot of time when we see local UAE locals or Muslims, they kind of think that Sharia law will be applied only and they cannot use a common law for their companies. They can completely go ahead and use common law. But yes, when it comes to the Islamic laws, the Sharia will be applied to their personal assets. Again, that has to be clarified with the legal consultants or legal counsels. Okay, coming back to the next slide, that is transfer of domicile. Now, when I talk about transfer of domicile, it's very straightforward, that we enable both IBCs and foundation to be transferred to RAK ICC from any other jurisdiction without liquidation and it ensures the continuity of the legal identity and assets. So that doesn't move or becomes difficult for the client to manage their company. And the movement is very smooth with RAK ICC. With all the documents clear, it might take just maximum of 7 working days for us to complete the process. In terms of setting up a foundation, if everything is clear in terms of bylaws, charter, we take 3 working days to set up the foundation. So it's very quite quick, easy. With IBCs, it's going to be 2 working days. So that is, again, everything boils down to the documentation part. If everything is clear, documents are clear, and the structure is very much smooth, we do have all these things in place. The companies can be set up very smoothly without any issues or problems. Now, in terms of uses, it enables entities to continue with RAK ICC companies while retaining the ownership, records, and obligations, allows migration to and from recognized jurisdiction as it needs evolve, preserve legal identity, banking relationship, and operational continuity, offers cost-efficient, transparent process with regulatory oversight, eliminates the need of reestablishment and restructuring. So this will be something which really attracts a lot of people who are in different jurisdictions like Panama, Belize, or I can say Marshall Island, Cayman Island. When the tax implications changes in these countries, a lot of people tend to move their companies from these jurisdiction and come to something a stable jurisdiction, which might be the best for them will be UAE. And within the UAE, I can say right now I can vouch for RAK ICC to be one of the best in terms of helping the clients to redomicile for their holding companies. So this comes to an end. As Taruna mentioned, any questions you can put it in the chat box. I'll be really happy to help. Over to you, Samir.
Thank you, Donald. Really very clear, especially the part on the property ownership and the foundation. Very valuable for everyone listening in. We'll now bring Taruna back in to show you how all of this comes together in real situation. She'll walk through 2 client examples, one from the UK and one from Asia, and explain how structures were built, how banking was handled, and how RAK ICC fits within multi-jurisdictions setups. So Taruna, back to you.
Thank you, Samir, and thank you, Donald, as well. It was very detailed in terms of especially the use of foundations, which many clients may be not aware of these new developments. So it was very insightful. Juristax, we have been working with RAK ICC for several years. We have been assisting many clients to set up in RAK ICC, either having a RAK IBC or a RAK foundation. And we have also helped many clients redomicile to RAK ICC. So we know the process has been quite smooth, and we can vouch as well for that particular process for many of them. So in this part of my presentation, I'm going to talk more about the practical side of setting up the entities in RAK ICC, be it for incorporation needs, banking needs, but also the compliance requirements that is mandatory nowadays. So as a starting point, obviously, we need to ensure that there is a proper name reservation. We have a pack of incorporation documents ready, which includes a memorandum and articles of foundation for a RAK IBC or the foundation charter for a RAK foundation. We do the nomination or appointment of directors, registered agent, which is Juristax itself, which we are licensed under RAK ICC to act as such, and we will submit it on our platform to the authorities. Normally, we should be getting the certificate of incorporation within 2 to 3 working days. There have been exceptional cases which may have taken longer, and this is when we have several layerings on top of a shareholding of a company that we are setting up. In terms of compliance, as I have mentioned in the first part of my presentation, today UAE is fully compliant with international standards. So it's not a tax haven, it's not a jurisdiction where you will be allowed to set up with just a copy of passport, where certain people may think so. you need to have a proper documentation pack. You need to ensure you have passport, proof of address, CV, bank reference, and most importantly is a source of funds. What is where the funds are coming from, and what is the proof you have, a documentary proof to sustain that particular source of funds. This is requested from the authorities and from the bank. Obviously, we have dealt with clients who can be considered as higher risk clients, whether they come from countries which are high risk countries or they are themselves politically exposed. We do a more enhanced due diligence for those clients. And sometimes if there is any need to give assurance to the authorities, this is where we as registered agent will reassure the authorities that we have done everything as per our compliance standard.
I think there is an internet issue.
Right boxes. You need to coordinate with the different bankers to ensure that you are choosing the right bank for the type of company you have set up and the type of business activity you are engaging into. So this is a few words on the incorporation process. And moving on now, we have eventually the RAK ICC. It's, as Donald has mentioned, we do have the possibility to operate under the common law framework again, by getting access to either to the DIFC or to the ADGM court in any agreement that you're signing under your RAK IBC. The RAK IBC is also eligible to hold shares in any UAE or foreign companies, do any legal activity, register for real estate now, which is relatively new. It did not exist previously. Now, if you have a RAK IBC or a RAK foundation, you can decide to buy properties within the United Arab Emirates and register your title deed with the Dubai Land Development authorities. The advantage of using the Ras Al Khaimah Foundation, especially to hold the properties, as Donald mentioned previously, is to ensure succession planning and asset protection to the best of capabilities of any structure. So in terms of compliance, it fulfills completely what the laws requires us. We need to ensure that the beneficial ownership of any RAK IBC is well kept and updated. There is the transparent way of working with the authorities whenever there is a request for information, but it still remains a very confidential framework. It is not as if anyone from the public tomorrow can go and look into the registry to see who is the shareholder or who is the director behind the RAK IBC. It remains a confidential structure. So RAK IBC is the one that we have been set up. We know that we are offering to clients a possibility to have a UAE-based entity. In certain circumstances, they can benefit from 0% corporate tax. There is no withholding tax and capital gains tax. So it's very commonly used for offshore structuring, be it for investment holding, for trading, or for consultancy. So moving on to the first case study, we have got a lot of requests from UK recently as well for people who want to come to UAE as setting up either their second home or having an entity which will hold their assets in their home country. So in this particular example, we had a London-based family office who was looking mostly for succession vehicles in the UAE. And the one that we propose is the RAK Foundation for all the reasons that Donald has talked about. It's one of the strongest when it comes to asset protection. And eventually it is, in terms of ease of setting up and managing the foundation, it's one of the best in what a financial center can offer. It's very flexible. You can decide who will be the beneficiaries. If you want to amend the beneficiaries also at any time, it's feasible. In the case of the death of the founder, there is no need to go to court. There is no need to execute any kind of will, or there is no freezing of your assets, whether it's in the UAE or outside. There is a smooth continuation as if the founder is still alive whenever you decide to set up this type of succession planning vehicle. Obviously, there is also a separation from the person who is setting it up and the foundation in itself, which means that there is a proper ring fencing of assets. And you can also ensure if you have either a bank account in the UAE or a house, a villa in the UAE, you need to think about if tomorrow you're no longer there. If you have not properly catered for the assets to be structured, there can be the application of Sharia laws, which you may not want to be subject to. So in this particular circumstances, it's always good to structure whatever you hold, whether it's in UAE, most specifically in the UAE because of the Sharia laws, or even outside of UAE, but you don't want to fall in the succession laws of your own country, to structure that holding via a RAK foundation. And this is what this particular slide is mentioning about. And this is how we have helped the family office to set up foundation for their clients to ensure that there is a proper transition of assets from generation, but also by minimizing the tax liability. In the second case study, another product which is becoming very popular, another field which is becoming very popular in the UAE is the Web3, is the fintech sector. And today we are getting quite some requests from the Asian region, be it Singapore, Hong Kong, or China, for people who want to set up an entity either to hold their IP or to continue developing what you call the fintech activities in the UAE. For that, we have proposed in certain cases RAK IBCs to set it up as a holding entity to hold the IP rights over shareholdings in their different Asian companies, and with a proper corporate governance framework in place. This ensures eventually that any royalty payment is being brought in directly to the RAK IBC accounts and eventually subject to the tax laws in UAE rather than in the home country, which can be interesting in certain cases depending how you structure. One way of structuring a RAK IBC to ensure that you're optimizing your taxation in RAK ICC is to consider having the RAK Foundation as a shareholder of your RAK IBC. As mentioned previously in the slide, having a RAK Foundation on the top of a RAK IBC, it enables obviously the asset protection element to ensure that the assets which is placed under the RAK Foundation, including the shares of the RAK IBC, is fully protected and cannot be attacked by anyone. Secondly, it also enables you to request from FTA, the Federal Tax Authority, of an exemption if you're not doing any business activity within the structure. It's just pure asset holding. So all these type of structuring, this is where we have assisted many of our clients to make sure that they continue benefiting from the most optimized tax level and continuing servicing and their own clients and doing their activities. So in terms of annual maintenance of it's not just setting up an entity in the RAK ICC or setting up a RAK foundation in the RAK ICC. It's very important to note that as any entity in the world, you need to ensure that your RAK IBC or your RAK foundation is compliant with the statutory requirements. And this, for a RAK ICC entity, it ensures that you are making sure you renew your license on time to avoid any kind of penalties. You are maintaining the accounting records as required by the law. Now also for the federal tax authorities demand, you need to ensure that you have any decision that you take, which is a major decision, you have the right level of resolutions, minutes for board meetings, and you're maintaining your UBO, your ultimate beneficial ownership information updated. You need to ensure that there is compliance. We are fulfilling everything which is requested either by the AML CFT component of the regulatory framework. We are in a position to submit everything on time. So all these types of, I would say, statutory requirements, regulatory obligation, this is what us as a registered agent, when we sell a RAK IBC or a RAK foundation, we need to ensure that this is being done or conducted on behalf of the client to avoid any kind of penalty or sanctioned by the regulatory authority. And we have been here for the last several years, eventually, to assist any clients or guiding them in every step of the way to achieve that level of, I would say, a business activity or optimization. So with this, I think I will finish my part of the presentation on the practical side of setting up in RAK ICC, and I let maybe Samia lead on the next part of it.
Thank you, Taruna. The examples make it easy to visualize how these structures actually work. So I see it's already 11:30, but let's take a couple of questions. So, okay. So Donald, who benefits most from RAK ICC structures?
Okay, so
This is a
this
very
is
common question, being asked by many people.
Yeah, that's a really good question because see, regarding the benefits, I would more summarize it. It's not something which is niche. We are looking at RAK ICC is trying to look at becoming niche in terms of family office, private wealth, but we cater to almost everyone in terms of having a holding company with maybe assets like real estate or holding company IBCs to hold another entities, which is the maybe in other jurisdiction, maybe UK, US, India, or any other part of Asia. It's more of to do what we are trying to do here is we are trying to secure the client's legacy for their future, or maybe I can say future generation to come, many more generations to come, because this is something is the right way to move ahead from here on, because those were the old days when we used to have just one company operating the company, then giving that, handing over the company to your son, daughter, asking them to take forward the company, but no one bothered to look at in a different aspect of securing it by, like, putting it into something more I can say more secure or vigilant way of doing, like putting a foundation on it by securing it too tight where no one else, because whenever a owner of the business or a shareholder passes away and doesn't have a proper will or anything in place, it becomes quite difficult for the generations to take over, because you never know what is ahead of them. So that's the reason why right now we are looking at becoming a niche for the clients who wants to preserve wealth more into private wealth family offices. But as RAK ICC, we cater to everyone. So you have your holding companies. A foundation can be taken by someone who doesn't even have a really I'm talking about the assets in terms of huge businesses. Even if you just hold a property and you want to secure a property, you can put it in the foundation. RAK ICC can support you with that to maintain the property under the foundation, just to secure it. That's it. That's going to be the very easiest way to do it, rather than going through setting up a will, maintaining a will, and then someone coming back and challenging a will in the court of law. So it's going to be a long process. To cut everything short, we have a foundation, we have a regulation which is there on the bylaws. So no one can amend the bylaws. Whenever the foundation founder wants to do the amendments, he can go ahead and do the amendments with the help of the council members. So that's what is the more foundation we look at for. And in terms of companies, it's accessible to everyone. Anyone and everyone can go ahead and open the companies. But I would also put a small light here that stay tuned with RAK ICC, because the next year is going to be something more different coming in terms of companies. You will see some more changes with RAK ICC, and that will be something which is better for all the clients.
Perfect. Thank you. So Taruna, when is a foundation more suitable than a holding company?
So I think the foundation in itself is part of a holding structure. In fact, if someone is thinking of setting up a holding structure, he does have a choice to decide whether he wants to set up a RAK IBC to hold the shares that he has in other companies or hold the assets, or he can also decide to set up a foundation which will hold the same assets or the shares. In both cases, it works because both will offer the ring fencing of assets to make sure that it's not in the personal name of a client, but it's on the name of a structure, first of all. But I am more towards, if someone is telling me I want to set up an asset holding, I would always advise the client to start with thinking in terms of succession. Because if you hold the shares in your own name, in your personal name, when the client will pass away, the shares will fall under the succession laws of his country, which he may not want. So if you want to make sure you are getting a very optimized structure, you should consider having the foundation on the top, because you are in fact assimilating your own person to a foundation vehicle. So in case of death, there is no succession laws of his residency country applying. And then the foundation hold the shares of a company, which will eventually hold the shares of a different other companies over different assets. So if tomorrow if he wants to even to sell the underlying assets, he does not need to do anything at the level of a foundation. He will just sell the shares of a RAK IBC, which means that there is no capital gains tax, and everything that he will get out of the sale proceeds will go directly to the foundation and not in his personal name. So the ideal structure for me will always be two level: the foundation holding the RAK IBC to make sure that it's a fully fledged and a non-attackable holding structure. Obviously, it's a cost. Certain clients would sometimes choose to go just for the RAK IBC because it still fulfills the requirements of having a holding structure, or certain clients who are more conservative and who knows that they're setting up the holding just to ensure that their children can continue benefit, they will choose the RAK Foundation. So it all depends on the business needs and the requirements of a client. Either works, but the ideal would be both.
Perfect. So let's wrap this webinar up. I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. If you'd like to speak to us one-on-one or explore a structure for yourself or for your clients, our RAK ICC structuring desk at Juristax MENA is available anytime. We will also send a quick follow-up actually with highlights and contact details. So on behalf of Juristax MENA and RAK ICC, thanks again for being with us, and we look forward to catching up soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bye.
Salma. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you,
Bye.
Thank you,
Donald. Thank you,
Donald.
Bruno.
Thank you, Samir.
Thank you.